I'd driven that shortcut 100 times, a winding back road that shaved 10 minutes off my commute. But tonight was different. A fog, so thick and quiet it felt wrong, had rolled in and just swallowed the road. I remember thinking, it's just some weird weather. I was wrong. The shapes that started taking form in my headlights, they weren't tricks of the light. They were waiting for me. The day was a total write-off. One of those long gray Tuesdays that feels like it should already be Friday. I'm a line manager at a bottling plant just out of town. It's a job. It pays the bills. But the constant symphony of clanking glass and humming machines gets into your bones and stays there long after you clock out. This shift ran late. A conveyor belt went down and it was an all-hands-on-deck kind of mess. By the time I finally dragged myself into my beat-up sedan, the clock on the dash glowed 12:47 a.m., a time I'm normally seeing only in my dreams. I was bone-tired. The kind of tired where your eyes feel like sandpaper and your brain is just a dull hum. All I wanted was my bed. The main highway was the straight shot, sure, but it's always plagued with late-night roadwork and crawling long-haul trucks. And then there's this shortcut, Blackwood Creek Road. It's a bit of a local secret, a winding ribbon of asphalt that cuts through an old forest, spitting you out just a few blocks from my house. It's unlit, it's narrow, and yeah, it has a spooky reputation, but it's fast. It always gets me home faster. Tonight, it was a no-brainer. I turned off the main highway, my tires crunching on the gravel at the entrance to Blackwood Creek Road. The air here felt different. Instantly. Colder. The canopy of old oaks overhead just erased the sky, plunging everything into this deep, inky blackness that only my headlights could pierce. For the first mile or so, it was business as usual. The road twisted and turned in a familiar dance. The trees stood on either side like silent skeletons. I had the radio on low, some talk show host droning on, just a comforting human voice in the middle of all that quiet. Then I saw the first wisps of it. Just little fingers of mist snaking across the pavement. This part of the county is low-lying, near a marsh, so fog isn't exactly a UFO sighting. I didn't think much of it. I flicked my high beams on to try and cut through it, but the light just slammed into a white wall and reflected back, blinding me. It actually made things worse. I switched back to low beams and slowed way down, my knuckles turning white on the steering wheel. This wasn't normal fog. It didn't drift, it gathered. It poured out from between the trees like a thick, ghostly blanket, and within minutes, my visibility dropped to basically nothing. My entire world became the hood of my car and maybe 10 feet of road. Everything else was just gone, swallowed by a silent, gray-white void. But the creepiest part, the silence. The second that fog got really thick, my radio crackled. The voice I was listening to was consumed by a hiss, and then nothing. Just dead air. I stabbed at the buttons, trying to find any other station. I got nothing. And that's when I realized the other sounds were gone too. No crickets. No rustling in the woods. Even the sound of my own tires seemed muffled, like the fog was made of cotton. The quiet was so complete it felt heavy, like it was pressing in on the car. It was the kind of silence that feels wrong. The world outside my car had just stopped existing. And a cold, sharp feeling of dread started to cut through my exhaustion. I told myself it was just the weather, just my tired mind playing tricks. But some ancient lizard part of my brain was screaming that something was very, very wrong. My foot came off the gas, the car slowing to a crawl. Driving like this was just asking for trouble. The road's sharp turns I knew by heart, were now just popping out of the fog with no warning, forcing me to wrench the wheel to stay on the road. I was leaning forward, my face practically glued to the windshield, straining to see the faint white line on the edge of the road. That line was my whole world. The air inside the car felt cold and damp, a chill that seeped right through the glass. I had goosebumps on my arms, and it wasn't from the cold. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It was a physical pressure on my skin. It was crazy. Who would be out here? What could be watching me from a fog this thick? I tried to talk myself down. It's the isolation, the silence. Your senses are just on high alert. That's when I saw the first one. It was right at the edge of my headlights, a quick, distorted shape. For a split second, my tired brain thought, deer. But it was too tall, too thin. It was bent over, like someone looking for a lost wallet on the side of the road. It was there, and then it was gone, swallowed by the mist. I blinked, my heart kicking hard against my ribs. Did I really see that? Or was it just a weird tree stump, a trick of the fog? It had to be. I took a shaky breath, trying to force the panic back down. I kept driving, barely moving now. The silence in the car was deafening. All I could hear was the sound of my own ragged breathing and my own frantic heartbeat. I kept my eyes locked on that pathetic little patch of illuminated road. 5 minutes went by. Nothing. The knot in my shoulders started to loosen. See, it was a stump, a shadow. I was just letting the creepy woods get to me. Then I saw another one. This time it was closer, and there was no mistaking it. It was a figure. It was standing just off the road, partly hidden by some skeletal bushes. It was tall. Unnaturally tall, with limbs that just seemed too long for its body. It was perfectly still, a dark silhouette against the white fog. It wasn't facing me, but was standing in profile, its head cocked at this weird, curious angle, like it was listening for something I couldn't hear. The sight sent a jolt of pure adrenaline through me. My foot slammed the brake. We were frozen there for a second. Me and my car, heart hammering. It, a silent watcher in the mist. I couldn't make out a face or clothes, nothing. It was just a shape. It felt wrong. Everything about it screamed not human. As I stared, paralyzed, it slowly turned its head to face my car. I still couldn't see a face, just a dark, smooth oval. But I felt its gaze lock onto me. I felt it. Panic finally broke the spell. I didn't think. I just acted. I stomped on the gas, the engine roaring to life in the dead quiet, tires spinning for a second on the damp road before they caught. The car lunged forward. I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror. I just drove, my breath coming in ragged gasps. What was that? A person. Out here in this fog at this time of night. It made zero sense. A prank? Some local kids. It felt too deliberate for that. Too sinister. My hands were slick with sweat on the wheel. I had to get out of there. I pushed the car faster, gambling on the winding, invisible road. The trees were just dark blurs at the edge of my vision. The fog seemed to writhe and curl around me, thicker than ever, like it was trying to hold me back. And that's when I saw the road ahead wasn't empty anymore. They were standing there. Not one. 3 of them. Spread right across the road, blocking my path. They stood like statues, silent and still in my headlights. They were just like the other one. Tall, thin, long limbs, their forms hazy in the mist. It was a deliberate barricade. There was nowhere to go. The shoulders dropped off into steep, tree-filled ditches. The road was too narrow to turn around. My choice was simple. Stop or go through them. My mind was a mess of terror and disbelief. This isn't happening. It's a nightmare. I must have fallen asleep at the wheel. I pinched my arm hard. The pain was real. I was awake, and they were still there, waiting. As my car slowed, one of them took a step forward. Its movement wasn't human. It was jerky, like a puppet on strings. It just glided over the asphalt. Then another one moved, stepping out from the side, its long arm extending, pointing a long, thin finger right at me. The fear I felt was something else. It was a cold, primal terror that shut down all rational thought. These things were not people. They were something ancient and evil that waited in these woods. The fog wasn't just weather, it was their home. A shroud they brought with them from whatever dark place they came from. My car rolled to a stop maybe 50 feet away from them. The engine's idle sounded deafeningly loud against the dead silence. My headlights lit them up, but they were still indistinct, their edges blurred like the fog was clinging to them. They seemed to absorb the light more than reflect it, like holes cut out of the world. I was trapped. My little metal box had become a cage. I remembered every cheesy horror movie I'd ever made fun of. The lone driver, the creepy fog, the mysterious figures. It was all happening, and the fact that it was such a cliche somehow made it even more terrifying. It felt like I'd wandered into a story that had been told 1,000 times, and it never ended well for the guy in my shoes, my phone. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely grab it from the passenger seat. I flipped it over. No service. Of course, the isolation was absolute. It was just me and these things. The one in the middle of the road started moving towards me. It didn't walk. It flowed, a slow gliding motion that was completely silent. As it got closer, maybe 30 feet away, I started to see details that made my stomach turn. Its body was all wrong. The proportions were a nightmare. Its arms hung down past its knees. Its torso was too short, its legs too long. The head was a smooth, featureless oval, like a mannequin's, but it tilted with this creepy bird-like curiosity. There was the suggestion of a face under the surface, like someone pressing their features against a sheet of dark rubber, but nothing ever broke through. No eyes, no mouth. Just the horrifying implication of them. Behind it, the other 2 started to move, not towards me, but to the sides. They were flanking me, hurting me, cutting off any tiny chance of escape. I couldn't breathe. A little whimper escaped my throat. The central figure was closer now, 20 feet. I could see the texture of its skin. It wasn't smooth. It looked like packed soot or dark, wet fabric that seemed to ripple, even with no wind. The damp chill in the car got worse, and I smelled something faint and musty, like wet dirt and ozone. My brain was just a loop of go, drive, hit it, go. But my body was frozen, my foot hovering uselessly over the gas. I was a deer in the headlights, mesmerized by the approaching monster. It stopped about 10 feet from my bumper. It just stood there, that blank face aimed right at me. It raised one of its long arms. The motion was slow, graceful, and utterly terrifying. The arm stretched and stretched, looking like it was elongating as it reached for the hood of my car. Its fingers were long and thin, like sharpened twigs. Just as the tips were about to touch the metal, a random thought cut through the panic. It was from a driver's ed class years ago. In a moment of panic, you have to act. It was a stupid, random thought, but it was enough to break the spell. My foot didn't just press the accelerator. I slammed it to the floor. The engine screamed. The car lurched forward, throwing me back in my seat. I aimed right for the center figure. It was them or me. For a split second, it didn't react. It just stood there as a ton of steel and fury hurtled towards it. I braced for the impact, for that sickening crunch. But it never came. At the very last second, with an impossible speed, the figure just slid to the side. It was like watching a drop of oil move across glass. It was faster than anything that big should move. My car blew right through the space where it had been standing. I caught a glimpse of it in my passenger side window. Its blank face was turned towards me, and even though it had no mouth, I felt this wave of silent, shrieking rage. The two on the sides were lunging for me. One of them scraped its long fingers down the rear door with a sound like nails on a chalkboard, a high-pitched shriek of metal that I felt in my teeth. My knuckles were white. I didn't slow down. I kept the pedal floored, my eyes wide, staring into the fog. A sharp left appeared out of nowhere. I yanked the wheel, the tires screaming as the car fishtailed. I fought for control, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. For a terrifying second, I thought I was going to spin out and wrap myself around a tree. But the tires held. The car straightened out. I was getting away. I risked a glance in the rearview mirror. Big mistake. They were behind me. All three of them. They were running. And their run was a loping, nightmarish parody of a human sprint. Their long limbs just ate up the asphalt at an incredible speed. They were keeping pace with the car. A fresh wave of terror hit me. I couldn't outrun them. This winding road was their hunting ground. The fog seemed to thicken in front of me, like it was trying to slow me down, to deliver me back to them. No, I wouldn't let it. I focused everything on the road. I pushed the car faster than was sane. The engine whined. Branches scraped against the roof and windows. Every shadow was one of them. My world had shrunk to this car, this road, and the things that were chasing me through the fog. The chase felt like it went on forever. Every second was a lifetime of pure terror. Those dark, loping shapes stayed in my rearview mirror. They never got closer, but they never fell behind, either. They were tireless. It felt like they were toying with me, letting me think I had a chance. My car rattled and shook. The temperature gauge was creeping into the red. I was killing the old engine. If the car died out here, I couldn't even finish the thought. I just had to keep going. Then, the fog ahead started to glow with a faint orange light. At first, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me again, but it got brighter. It was real. A streetlight. Then another. The trees started to thin out, replaced by the familiar shapes of houses. I'd reached the edge of the woods. I was back in town. The moment I shot past the first intersection, leaving the forest behind, it was like breaking the surface after being held underwater. The fog didn't vanish, but it became normal again, just patchy mist. The unnatural silence was broken by the familiar hum of the town at night. I risked one last look in the rearview mirror. The road behind me was empty. They were gone. It was like they hit an invisible wall right where the woods ended. They just vanished back into the night. I didn't slow down until I screeched to a halt in my own driveway. It took me 3 tries to get the key in the front door because my hands were shaking so bad. I stumbled inside, slammed it, and locked every single bolt I had. I just stood there with my back against the door, panting, my whole body trembling. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. I just sat there with every light in the house on, jumping at every little sound. When the sun came up, I went out to look at my car. It was covered in mud and leaves, and there, on the rear passenger door, were 4 long, deep scratches, gouged right down to the metal. Perfect, parallel lines. I've never told anyone this story. I mean, who would believe me? They'd say I was tired, that I imagined it. But I have the scratches on my car, and I have the memory burned into my brain. I don't take the shortcut anymore. I actually quit that job a month later. I found work on the other side of town, so I'd never have to drive near Blackwood Creek again. Sometimes, on damp nights when the fog rolls in, I feel that same cold dread. I think about those deserted streets after midnight, and the things that wait in the mist. Some paths are best left untraveled. And some things, once you see them, you can never forget. If you have a true scary story you would like to be read in a future video, please send it to the email address in the description below. Thank you for watching. And be careful on the road. You never know what's waiting in the fog.